But for me, which of these two shoes do I prefer as a long run shoe? Today's shoe comparison review, we've got a bit of a battle of some long run shoes here. So we've got the ASICS Superblast 2 up against the ASICS Glideride Max. So we're going to go through their similarities, their differences and their key features. And hopefully from that, that's going to give you guys a great indication of choosing the right shoe for you. But before we get into it, a big shout out to my #1 running store, the Running Company at Geelong. I've got a link to their website in the description. Make sure you go check out that and check out all their running gear. And also guys, if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. So both these shoes are marketed as long run shoes and both neutral running shoes. But what's jumping out to me here in the specs is that huge difference in the price. So you're going to pay a lot more for the Superblast 2. Is that warranted? Well, you'll be able to see why that's warranted further on in the review. Now in the weight, Superblast coming in at the much lighter package here. Can you actually feel that on the foot? You certainly can. Superblast feels much lighter and more nimble on the foot. In the stacks here, pretty evenly matched stacks, but when you wear both these shoes at the same time, the Superblast still feels like this taller stack, and that's just got to do with how soft and how firm these midsole foams are. I can't really tell any difference there in the drops. And in the uppers, both engineered mesh stated by ASICS, however, very different designs, very different performances in the upper. So with the Glideride Max, we have got a more of a traditional looking engineered mesh. So it's very reminiscent of what you're going to see on the Nimbus. The breathability in this shoe through the toe box is okay, but it builds up quite considerably for the rest of the shoe. There's lots of padding on this shoe and it actually feels like a bit of a hot shoe for me. Really solid heel counter at the back. We don't have an Achilles flare, but we've got a pull tab, which I haven't had to use. We've also got a pull tab on the tongue, which I have had to use just to get my foot into the shoe. We've got a plush amount of padding around the heel collar here and nicely padded tongue as well. The tongue is gusseted. Standard lacing system is what you're going to probably find in the Nimbus as well. However, I don't really need to cinch these laces up because this shoe for me feels like it's got so much padding in it really takes all the volume away out of the shoe. That results in the lockdown being excellent. So saying that, I don't like being locked down this much in this shoe. So for me, it holds my foot down everywhere, and that for me, I feel a little bit too constricted. I know some people like that in a shoe, but not for me. As long as I don't get any heel slip, I don't mind a little bit of extra volume in the shoe. That moving on to the fit, so I think for me it comes up a little short, and I think that's got to do with all the amount of padding in the shoe and just the low volume I feel in the shoe. So if I could go again, I would go half size up just to give myself a little bit of volume. Stepping comfort of this shoe is amazing and the build quality excellent. Now with our Superblast 2, again, as I said, it's an engineered mesh, or ASICS say it's an engineered mesh, but it's a very different feeling. So it looks like a knit, but it's not a knit. Breathability is excellent in this shoe, and overall this shoe doesn't feel like a hot shoe like the Glideride Max. Like the Glideride Max, you've got a really solid heel counter at the back, no Achilles flare, but again, it's got that same pull tab at the back. We've probably got a medium amount of padding around the Superblast, so a little bit less in this shoe. A thinner tongue here with a couple of pads on it just to take the laces pressure off. The tongue is gusseted in this shoe. Now, the lacing system, pretty standard here, same as the original Superblast if you're familiar with that. But this shoe in general feels like it's got much more volume than the Glideride. The fit in this shoe is true to size in the length, and I'm going to say that the toe box is quite generous. So you feel like you've got a lot of volume in there, lots of wiggle room, which I really like. Stepping comfort, it's pretty good as well, but not as good as the Glideride Max. But again, build quality with ASICS, as in both shoes, it's always excellent. And with our outsole, so two very different designs going on here. So with the Glideride Max, this one looks very similar to what you're going to find in the Nimbus 26. So ASICS hybrid grip. Now it's a bit of a mix between the old school AHA Plus, which was a really high abrasion rubber, and also the brand new really grippy ASICS grip. So it's a mix of that to boost the durability and keep the great grip of the ASICS grip. But yeah, I've had no issues with the grip of this shoe. Absolutely amazing, and it's wearing down quite nicely as well. As I mentioned before, it's the same type of grip pattern as what's on the Nimbus. What you can also see here with the shoe, they don't have the rubber in segments, which I like to see on shoes. So it's just sort of one big horseshoe shape of where the rubber coverage in this shoe. And I think that's got to do with, they just want to add a little bit of rigidity to this midsole to obviously enhance the ride, which I'm going to go on to a little bit later. They've got a bit of an exposed foam channel through the middle of the shoe. It's not really a big groove, so it's quite filled in to what you'd probably been familiar with on other models of the Glideride. But overall, it's a great performing rubber, great performing outsole, just like it is in the Superblast 2. But you'll notice here that the rubber compound, which is all the yellow stuff, it's just segmented off, and that just lets that midsole splay, lets it breathe, and just adds to the ride of the shoe. I believe it's a different rubber compound on the Superblast 2, so it's not the hybrid ASICS grip, it's actually just the ASICS grip. But if someone in ASICS or someone knows better, then feel free to correct me in the comments below. I'm just going on of what ASICS says on their website. But yeah, ASICS grip, it is unbeatable. So it is a market leader. It's up there with Puma grip. It doesn't falter in any conditions, and it's really, really durable. So I've had no dramas with this. The rest of the shoe, as you can see there, it's just exposed foam. And again, I like to see a shoe that is not just lathered in rubber. I love to see it just in segments, just to keep the weight down, and a bit of exposed touching the ground as well really just adds some softness to the ride, which I really enjoy. But again, this shoe, the outsole is just amazing. And in the midsole, so both have dual density foams, meaning both have two types of foams in each midsole. So with our Glideride Max now, the majority of foam in the midsole here is FF Blast plus Eco. Now that is the same foam as what they use in the Nimbus 26. So that foam is, it is soft, but it's really dense. And that foam in this shoe is all that bottom layer, as you can see there. And then on top of that, they've got a 3/4 plastic plate to try to give this shoe some rigidity. And it is a little bit rigid, but I'd really like it to be a little more rigid, considering it is a really heavily rocketed shoe. So yeah, it's still got a bit of flex there. It's quite easily to bend. And above that plastic plate, we've got their brand new foam, the FF Blast Max foam. So this foam, a lot more softer, a lot more squishier, and a lot more bounce than that Eco foam underneath. Now, in the geometry, the Glideride is always famous for their rocket geometry, and this one is no different. So it does have the guide sole tech, and other shoes that share that guide sole geometry is also what you're going to find in the ASICS Noosa series as well. But their rockers are usually, they're quite aggressive, but they start further back in the shoe. So you can actually feel the rocker in the guide sole, more so when you're jogging around. It's not so much of a performance geometry rocker. Whereas in the Superblast 2, again, as I said, dual density foams, but the two foams that they've got going on here, so is FF Turbo Plus, so that is their premium race day foam as well. Like, that's their super foam, and it takes up the majority of foam in this shoe, and that justifies why this shoe just costs so much more money. And then under that, they have just got a really thin layer of the FF Blast Plus foam. So that's the old school Blast Plus foam that I think you're going to find in the old school Nova Blast 3. Now this shoe does not have a plate in it, however, very rigid. So it's way more rigid than what you're going to find in the Glideride Max, which is very surprising considering this has got a plastic plate, this has nothing. So yep, the far more rigid shoe. Now geometry wise, yeah, this has got a 4-foot rocker, but it is not as noticeable as what you're going to find in the Glideride Max. When you're running in these two shoes, this shoe feels much more traditional than the Glideride Max. And we've got two very different ride experiences going on here. So with the Glideride Max, so this one is nice and soft. So you get a lot of sink into this shoe. You'll sink right through that FF Blast Max at the top. Then it's toned down a little bit by the Eco foam at the bottom, and you're going to get that nice dense feeling, that really high shock absorption, the same sort of feeling that you get from the Nimbus. But then as you roll onto this rocker and then you come out of your foot strike, you get a nice bit of pop and bounce out of the foam and then off onto your next foot strike. So it's quite a fun ride, but yeah, overall it's quite a soft ride. It's a bit of a squishy ride, but yeah, very, very protected from the road. And it's just so comfortable, this ride, super duper comfortable. It's a very easy shoe to run in. And what you're going to get with the Superblast 2 is a much more responsive ride. So this foam is much more firmer. There's far less sink into this foam, but it's got really quick rebound. So when you go into your foot strike in this one, you do sink into it a little bit. So it takes all the impact out of the road. However, this foam is just going to throw your foot out really, really fast. And it's just got that really snappy, responsive feel. And I know, obviously, the heavier you are as a run, you're going to sink into this foam a little more, and it's going to feel probably more compliant than what it does for someone like me. So it's much more of a traditional feeling ride in the geometry-wise compared to the really rocket geometry of the Max, but it's quite nice. Now, what this shoe is also is it's a very efficient ride because you don't slug into the foam or sink into this foam so much. You're not wasting energy digging yourself out of the foam and going forward. So yeah, it's just very easy to tick your legs over in this shoe quite easily. And it's also a very consistent ride because this foam is just so durable. So it's not going to get all sloppy and sluggish too as your run goes on. So this foam not going to break down. It's going to feel just the same as when you take out for the first K as when you're finishing up on your 30 or 40th K. This foam's just still going to have that nice amount of rebound. So it's not going to go all sloppy on you. And I know some people can still find the Superblast 2 as a soft shoe, but if I've got it like a softness scale between these two shoes, so 10 being the softest shoe that I've ever tried, so I'm going to say the Glideride Max, I'm going to give that a 7.5 out of 10 for softness, where I'd probably rate the Superblast 2 as probably a 4 out of 10 in the softness department. So that's maybe a bit of a guide of how far apart these two shoes feel on the foot. And best use for both these shoes, well, I know ASICS has marketed them both as great long run options, but for me, I think the Glideride Max shines as a recovery shoe. So just that really soft, comfortable ride, I think you get the most out of it on those really slow days when you just have got really beaten up legs. You're just going to get a really soft ride here, very easy to run in. This rocket's just going to let the legs tick over, and this really soft midsole is just going to take all the pounding out of the road. So I think this one really shines at recovery days, really easy Ks, your daily miles as well, and probably if you do 2 runs a day on your doubles, this is probably a good shoe to do your doubles in as well. For your long runs, yes, I would do recommend it for a long run, but I think anything under 2 hours. So I think this shoe is a little bit too soft and it feels a bit too sluggish and hot for those really long runs. So anything longer than 2 hours, I probably would shy away from this shoe, but anything under, say, from 90 minutes up to 2 hours or from an hour up to 2 hours, I think this shoe is fine for that as well. And with the Superblast 2, so yes, it's a great long run shoe, but it's also a great daily trainer as well. It's just going to eat the daily miles up. It's a really durable shoe. And again, it's just a really consistent ride, so you know what you get in this shoe. Now, where this shoe differs in the long run department is just the efficiency. So you don't, as I said before, you don't sink into this foam so much. So you feel, or I do, I feel a lot more efficient in this shoe. And obviously that's down to the weight of the shoe as well. This shoe is also more suitable when you've got some speed. So this shoe can do some tempo workouts. If you've got some pickups in your long run, or if you want to take this out on a fartlek or anything, this shoe can absolutely handle those type of runs as well. So ASICS is really looking after all types of runners here with their long run options. So they're catering for both types of runners. So if you're one of those runners that for your long runs, you just have time on your feet, there's no pace involved at all, you just want to plod along and tick the legs over, then probably the Glideride Max is going to be a great option for that. But if you're one of those runners that likes to do their long run at a bit of a steady pace, you've got some pickups in it, or you've got some marathon pace work in your long runs, then I think that the Superblast 2 is probably the best option for that. But for me, which of these two shoes do I prefer as a long run shoe? Well, I'm going to go for the Superblast 2, and it's just because I think it's a much more efficient ride, and I also like the versatility that this one delivers. But if I'm going to pick a favourite for an easy day shoe, well, I'm going to go with the Glideride Max, because I just love how comfortable this shoe, how soft it is, nice amount of bounce, and I really love the rocker. But anyway, guys, that's it from me. Interested to hear your thoughts on my comparison between these two. Which of these two shoes do you prefer for your long run shoe, or which do you think you'd prefer for an easy day? Let me know in the comments below. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Make sure you give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.